Hello, everyone. This is Chelsea Midlarski with Rise. For those of you who are Rise members and familiar with Rise, thank you for joining us today. For those of you not as familiar with Rise, we welcome you. Rise stands for Rising Insurance Star Executives, and we are an organization devoted to growing, recognizing, and advancing the best young professional talent in the insurance industry. We were founded in 2016 to showcase the fun, innovative, and emerging aspects of the insurance field through our targeted network events, interactive social media platforms, and technology-driven development webinars like the one we have today. So today we have a very exciting webinar. It is How to Start a Career in Claims, being hosted by Darlene Stevens, Director of Operations, Danielle Cox, Training Unit Manager, and Taylor Owens, Customer Care Unit Manager of NARS, North American Risk Services. They will be talking about taking on the challenges of a career in claims. Just so you know a little bit about our presenters. Darlene Cox has many years in the claims industry with both the carrier and the TPA. She has overseen just about every aspect of the claims organization, from property, liability, workers' comp, auto, SIU, subro, quality assurance, and operations. Taylor Owens has a call center background and came to NARS from Spectrum, where he was an operations supervisor. And Danielle Cox has been in the insurance industry for more than 20 years in claims, SIU, QA, and management. She has been instrumental in developing a company-wide training curriculum for experienced and new claims professionals. And I am sure that she will tell you all about it in this presentation. So before I pass it over to Darlene, Taylor, and Danielle, I just want to let everyone on the webinar know that if you have questions, you can put them and write them in the question box. We will leave them till the end to have the NARS team answer all those questions, and we'll address as many as we can as time permits. So without further ado, take it away, NARS.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Darlene's going to give you a little bit about what NARS is. So NARS has been in the business for 23 years. We are a third-party administrator, which means that we handle claims for various companies, carriers, all different lines of business. We actually are very diversified. The only types of claims that we do not handle are medical and life. We have offices all over the United States. We have it in New Jersey, South Carolina, Georgia, California, Texas, and teleworkers nationwide. So here, a few years ago, several years ago, people in the industry started realizing that we're losing our workforce. The baby boomers are retiring, not as many people are getting into the business, and we had to become proactive and prepare for this. How could we do it? We had to become creative on how we were going to get our replacement staff. So we understand that matriculation over the next 5 to 10 years will be 30% or more of the current job base. So many of the companies in the industry are scrambling to hire people. So there's current need, and then there's also development needs for the future. Since about 30% of us or more are going to be exiting the workforce, development is going to be key to our future needs. So based on this realization, companies are becoming very competitive with regards to salaries as well as benefits. So a lot of companies are offering the ability to work from home, either all-time or part-time. They're offering flex hours. They're offering different additional benefit incentives, such as pet insurance and different items like that. Unfortunately, this is leading to constant churning of our workforce as well as job hopping. So the job hopping issue comes into play for the employee because you have a lot of different companies on your resume. Someone might not necessarily be as inclined to hire you, so be careful if that's something that that you're looking to do. However, it's also costing companies a lot of money with regards to resources to train new hires, especially those new hires with limited or no experience. So other obstacles that we're finding to fill out our employment roster is that younger people are just not interested in what they perceive to be a very dry field. But this is something that couldn't be further from the truth. What we kind of delve into is a little bit of everything. We have contract law issues, we have medical issues, we get a little bit of information about how to repair cars and how to repair homes. We just need to do a better job as an industry as a whole to express the vastly different situations that an adjuster is going to come across on a daily basis. So what I want you guys to kind of think about is the Final Destination movie. So that's something that younger folks have kind of taken into as, oh my goodness, this is a great horror movie franchise. But what we need to do as the insurance industry is say, hey, each and every one of these accidents in the Final Destination series can ultimately be broken down into multiple different coverages. Different carriers would be involved with it. Different policies would be involved with it, different limits. So if you take that first incident where there's that plane crash, can you imagine the different industries that are involved with that? We've got the airline itself. We've got whether or not they have a subcontractor who went in to actually do the maintenance on the airplane, and so on. We could potentially have a more general liability type claim where it comes to the actual airport itself and the people that were injured at the airport, the people that died on the plane. So there's a lot of different ways that you can look at this so that you can kind of pull it out and say, look, these are the type of things that we deal with on a daily basis. It's going to spark interest in the industry a little bit better, and I think that it's something that folks really can delve into a little bit more. So the next time you're taking a look at a horror movie or at just a movie in general, kind of think how insurance is going to come into play with that. I think you'll be surprised with it, and it's simply going to get those creative juices flowing for you. So we're going to go on and talk about how NARS kind of approached this. There's a lot of different things that we were able to do. Fortunately, we are a smaller company, and back whenever we started with the intern program, we were approximately 150 people. We have grown significantly. A lot of that does have to do with the internship and fast track and outbound call center program that we have. The first thing that we're going to talk about, though, is we're going to talk about the internship program. So this was kind of our first foray into bringing in a more organic approach to our new hires. So we created the internship program for people who were in college who were interested in pursuing a career in claims. This was offered as an hourly wage position for 3 days a week and was kind of designed to go along with whatever college courses you were studying. During the program, the intern would study some general insurance material and then test out of the general items and then delve into line of business specific material. So what I mean by line of business is auto, transportation, general liability, property, homeowners property or commercial property, workers' compensation. So those are the different lines of business that we actually participate in and what we train in. So what the intern would do is they would go through the study material that we provide, and then they would test out for each one of those courses. They would also, during their 3 days in the office, they would shadow a specific person within that line of business that they were tackling at the time. So they would rotate between auto property damage for a few weeks, and then auto bodily injury for a few weeks, and then move on to general liability for a few weeks. And then they would learn what the adjusters do in each of those programs and each of those lines of business, and then they would slowly take on the individual tasks. So we're kind of letting them wade into the program so that they can be immersed in the entire situation at any given time, so that they can learn slowly and kind of gain that experience at the same time. Once they rotated through all of the lines of businesses to complete the program, they were then allowed to go ahead and apply for a regular position within a unit. That would be for whatever line of business we actually had a position available for, and what line of business they were most interested in. So if somebody was most interested in commercial general liability and wanted to handle slip and falls and parking lots, then they would go ahead and apply for a position where they were able to do that. They would have to interview through our regular interviewing process, so with the unit manager, the hiring unit manager, and with their director. And if the unit manager felt that they would be a good fit, then they would be hired on as a claim adjuster 1. So now I'm going to turn it over to Darlene to talk to you about the fast track.
So for many years, we at NARS were talking about how we needed a lower level adjusting staff that could handle very simple first party claims like glass, windshield tow, or even to start an investigation for an adjuster for a general liability claim. They could even handle some of the smaller general liability claims, like if you're dealing with a restaurant, I bit into something that broke my tooth, I, dropped a Coke on myself and hit my foot, something small. So we decided that we would implement the fast track, kind of going from the intern program to the fast track unit. We had an opportunity to bring on a client that had numerous general liability claims that would benefit from a program of this type. So we initially hired 4 people and a manager. Those 4 people went through the same training that the interns went through. They had coursework they had to do. They came on board without their adjuster's license, but it was mandatory that they obtain their adjuster's license within, I think it was 6 months. So we, as the manager in that unit, worked very closely with them, not only in their studies and in obtaining their license, but also in the day-to-day handling of the claims. So they would get the claim in, they'd have to research it, review it, take statements, contact everybody involved. And it wasn't long before we realized that we could utilize this in property also. So we added additional property adjusters to the fast track mix. We actually started another unit. The unfortunate thing for the property team was that we implemented this one right before Irma hit here in Florida. And Danielle, what happened with Irma?
Well, Irma kind of rendered our home office building uninhabitable for a few days. So we were actually working out of a hotel who has Embassy Suites Orlando North. They're absolutely fantastic. They work with us quite a bit when it comes to any sort of catastrophic incident where we can't utilize our own facilities. So we actually hired people that were to start the Monday after Irma hit, and they ended up not being able to start until the Wednesday after Irma hit. And then they were thrown into all manner of first notice of loss for hurricane losses. So it was an exciting time, and if you were a person that loved to learn on the job, it was the right field for you at that point. It was also a lot of downfalls, which we'll get into as on the next slide, as to the lessons that we learned. So Taylor, do you want to talk about the outbound call center?
Yeah, so the outbound call center was started for, I guess, adjusters or people who had no insurance background but had the goal to eventually become an adjuster. So with the outbound call center, we started with 4 people and myself, and then we kind of grew from there. But the premise of the outbound call center was to build that foundation to understand insurance, I guess, lingo, the terminology, and then understand different lines of businesses and what route you want to take, when you finally build that comfortability. Primarily focus on setting up claims, or as far as learning how to read policies, understand the coverages, and then overall just customer experience. So we had to make sure the phone etiquettes that for the people we were hiring were to the standard that we wanted to proceed with. So, yeah.
The outbound team was initially the concept, before Taylor started with us, the concept, we thought we could utilize customer service reps to do this. But as we looked further at the process and the workflows that we were building, we thought this is a great opportunity for us to start as a place for us to start our trainees. So what we looked for were people that not necessarily had the experience, but that had put their skin in the game and gone out and gotten their adjuster's license. So, and they were just looking to find a company that would hire them. And we tell them up front when we interview them that our hope is, and our goal is that we train them and then we have an employee for a very long time.
We wanted career-minded individuals, people who are motivated and driven to succeed in claims.
And then with our mentorship program, we are currently working to develop a more robust mentorship program. The original mentors were to have taken the fast track folks under their wing, answer any questions for them, go through different claims with them, kind of give them pointers throughout. Unfortunately, due to employee churning and whatnot, that particular mentorship program did not have the support that we needed to make it successful. So we are currently working to develop the mentorship program for the Fast Track and Outbound Call Center group so that these new adjusters will always have a go-to person. The mentors are also going to start becoming part of our training program for the assistant unit managers and unit managers. So there's a lot more to come from this particular portion of the program as this is all currently in development. So what we learned from these things, from these different programs that we kind of come up with and pulled out of the air and tried to make it work. A lot of managing of the intern program became quite laborious when there were more than about 5 people. Because if you can imagine, the interns would come in at separate times. They wouldn't all start on the same day. So they were at different points within their training and different points within the unit. So it was very difficult to keep track of everything that was going on with the intern program because that was not just the sole focus of a position to manage. The program was adjusted as needed, but we just couldn't get the right timeline. So there was so much to learn. There's over 20 courses that the intern would go through to learn, and there just wasn't enough time to accommodate the material. Additionally, we tried to roll them through the specific lines of businesses for 4 weeks, for 5 weeks, but that either wasn't enough time for them to get that involved with those particular lines of business and programs, or it was just too long. We found that a lot of our interns just kind of lost interest. We had a lot of issues with work ethic.
We had issues with people who just didn't want to finish it, or they decided that they were going to go into something other than risk management, or they decided that they wanted to do something else, or there was a different opportunity elsewhere. While this was a paid internship program, there just wasn't a whole lot of excitement for it out in the marketplace. So I don't want to say that it was a complete failure. This wasn't a complete failure. We have 4 or 5 people who went through the internship program 5 or 6 years ago and are still with us. They're doing great. They're on the path towards becoming senior adjusters and potentially moving into the mentorship role. So ultimately, though, we decided that the intern program was simply not meeting the needs of the interns that we were hiring in, and it was certainly not meeting the needs of NARS. So we decided to change our focus to the fast track, which Darlene did explain earlier. Now we want to tell you about how the fast track kind of evolved from the way it was with just property and just GL focus into what it is today.
Right. So what we learned was that initially with the fast track team was we were more focused on claims than on their learning. And ultimately we had some failures because of that, which a lot of it was on us for not realizing that they didn't have the skill set or the knowledge they needed to progress in the career. Over the years, we have tweaked the fast track program many times, almost on a daily basis, to what it is now, because as we said before, Irma and the catastrophes that we handle played a big part initially in the fast track. So when we decided that we needed to develop an outbound team, we actually, let me take a step back. Even with this fast track and the struggles we've had, in the last 2 years, we have had 12 people promote into frontline adjusting positions. So even though we continuously tweak it and make changes, we have a lot of successes too. So we're going to talk to you about our approach today, starting off with the customer service representative. So the customer service representatives, we have 2 different areas that they can start in. They can either start in what we call our processing unit, which they pull policies, they issue payments and stuff like that, or they can start in our intake unit. Intake is just what it is. They're taking in the new claims, taking by phone, by email, by fax, however they come in. And when certain claims, as they're phoned in, we also have scripts for them to follow. They then can go into the outbound customer care team, which we had 1 or 2 that have promoted from the customer service unit into the outbound team. The outbound team, we start with the basics, for the claim basics. They learn how to read a policy. They learn how to document coverage in their file notes. They are learning how to take statements from people. They learn how to go out and run an ISO check and document the file. They basically tee up the claim for the frontline adjuster.
And since the outbound, just to kind of jump in there, since the outbound team has kind of run its course a little bit, we've already since then had 3 people promoted into the fast track team, and we have an additional 1 spot right now we're looking at to promote to fast track as well. So you can see the trend there going from customer service representative to an outbound call center to the fast track and so on.
One of the things that we are also focusing on is we have greater oversight of the outbound call center as well as the fast track team. If we recognize that someone is struggling with a particular issue or with a particular coverage, coverage or with documentation, we can go ahead and pull them back. Now, this isn't to say that they're stalling their career by any means. What it is saying is that we recognize that they need a little bit additional training on these specific issues so that they can be better. Once they get the hang of things, once they develop a little bit more in those specific areas which they might be struggling with, they can then just regain where they were previously. We have had a success with that as well.
Exactly. It gives them a chance to kind of slow down a little bit, try to understand the process a little bit better, and build up on the weaknesses that they may have had, make those into strengths. So we have had success so far. Actually, one of our fast track agents, when the outbound was first started, was brought over to the outbound team. He has since been promoted back to fast track. And we're currently working on our second person who was brought back to outbound, and we're working for additional training to promote them back up to fast track. So
I think recognizing that everyone learns at a separate pace is something that's been instrumental to this particular success. So once people go from CSR to the outbound call center to the fast track unit, they'll go ahead and be able to apply for positions in a regular unit that's available and go ahead with the interview process, because as we all know, there's no such thing as a wasted interview. Every single interview is going to give you that experience, and it's key to your success in your careers. So when they do get that position in a regular unit as a claims adjuster, they're on to a little bit more of in need of hand-holding, because they're handling more complex claims now. They're handling it from start to finish. There's a little bit more involved with regards to policies and coverages and documentation. The unit manager is taking them under their wing and slowly integrating them into more complex situations. Once they get the hang of where they are, then they can go ahead and add more things to their experience level. They can add bodily injuries. They can add more complex litigation. This is all to give them a basis of what they need to be successful in claims. Currently, when someone is hired into a regular unit from the fast track unit, the unit manager role is instrumental in their development, along with the training department. However, with the development of this mentorship program, each unit will then be able to provide more program-specific training for that young adjuster. It'll typically take about 5 years for a new adjuster to gain the experience that they need in order to rely more upon themselves than a mentor for a moderately complex claim. So that's not to say that everybody is on that 5-year plan. Some adjusters just kind of take off and run with it, and they might be a little bit more advanced. But it's been my experience in the industry, and Darlene's as well, that generally speaking, a new adjuster is not as experienced or as well versed until they hit that 5-year mark. There's a lot of other things that come into play whenever you are dealing with all of these experiences as well. So the line of business that you're dealing with is extremely important. The specific programs and policies that you're dealing with, you do have to have the background for that. Differences in jurisdictions can just be astronomical, and until you gain that experience with those particular jurisdictions, you are going to rely on other people. Additionally, there's constant new trends in medical care, technology, auto, building materials, everything. So the adjuster has to keep up with all of these new things, these new trends and technologies, so that you're constantly learning. Now, I don't want you to think that as a new adjuster, you're not going to, in 5 years, you're not going to rely on anybody else. That's by far not the case. We rely heavily on everyone's experience here. We round table different scenarios, we round table different claims to gather other people's opinions with regards to liability, with regards to value, with regards to cost, etc. So I don't want you to think that once you hit that 5-year mark, you're going to be out there on your own. But that 5-year mark is extremely important because that's when you can go ahead and start working with the Institute to potentially go ahead and get some designations under your belt, as well as to start trying to promote into a more senior position. Okay. Now we're going to discuss some goals. So our number one goal is we are constantly growing, so we want to constantly grow our outbound customer care team, which will then move into our fast track team. These are our new employees, our new staff for handling claims, as we said in the beginning of this broadcast. We're losing adjusters daily. We're retiring. We're getting older. We need to replace, our adjusting staff. Finding new and creative ways to attract and retain the serious candidates. Like Danielle said, a lot of companies are offering perks that, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, you'd never hear of. You would never hear in the industry that they're now offering pet insurance. We offer pet insurance. But not 5 years ago, you wouldn't. That's true. And like we said, and then implementing the mentoring program. It's all about developing our next line of adjusting staff. Absolutely. So I'm sure what you guys have all been waiting for are some of the careers that we have in claims. Some of the career paths that we've kind of been dancing around here, claims handling. So there are some folks out here who want to handle claims, and that's what they want to do. These are the frontline adjusters, senior adjusters, general adjusters, and so on. So again, at the 5-year point is when you should start looking at designations. 5 years is where you're going to be really comfortable in your skin, comfortable in your role, and able to take on a little bit more. So it's really kind of imperative that you learn and you can demonstrate that knowledge so that you can become more marketable within your own company as well as elsewhere if that particular company isn't working for you. Something that everybody is always excited about is special investigations. All new adjusters are interested in this, but it's not all fun and games. I had a couple of years as an SIU investigator as well, and you find out some very interesting things about people. It's very much a learning curve, but you do have to have a base knowledge of claims handling, coverages, and so on, but you also need to be able to dig in. You also need to have a thick skin. I can't tell you how many times I've been threatened to be beat up or spit upon because I, denied a claim because of fraud and other questionable activities. One of the things about special investigations, though, is that you can't let that role make you suspicious of everything. I mean, you do have to investigate, you do have to dig in, but you can't become cynical. The next one is compliance. So compliance is very interesting. So each state has its own requirements for literally everything, even down to the font that has to be used on certain letters and notifications. So if you want to get a flavor of the compliance role and the landmines that are involved with that, go onto the California DOI website and start reading the statute. I think it'll be kind of eye-opening to you. A good compliance person is extremely detailed and organized, and you have to be on point at every issue because the adjusters in the company are relying on you. If we make a mistake in compliance, that simply results in fines and it could actually get our licensure taken away from us for that particular state. So the next one is quality assurance. So this is kind of tricky because you're in charge of internal and external audits. So you have to create corrective action plans if the audit for the external folks didn't go well as being on the front line for both the clients and the state. The state of California does an SIU audit as well as a regulatory audit. Pretty much several times a year, they simply pick out a carrier and they start auditing. If we're the TPA handling that particular carrier, then they're coming to us with a question. So what you have to do in QA is objectively grade what's been done and offer remediation or training to make sure it doesn't happen again. It works in conjunction with compliance as well. In the event that there's state fines or anything like that, QA and compliance do work together to kind of rectify the situation and see how we can behave going forward. Client relations, sales, and marketing, these are the folks who actually go out and get our clients and retain them. So without our clients, we wouldn't even have jobs. So this is a pretty important part of the company. In order to get a client, however, you have to have a background in claims because these folks are going to be asking you all about, well, how do you handle this situation? Well, how do you handle a coverage situation? Have you ever gone through a declaratory action situation, and how did you handle it, and what did you do moving forward? These kinds of things are extremely important so that we can actually communicate well with the client so that we can make sure that they're going to be a good fit for us and us for them. So accounting, you can actually go into forensic accounting, or you can actually be on our day-to-day accounting services. So there's a lot of situations like business interruption, which are related to claims as well. A lot of accounting issues are IT related. So we have various technologies that are up and coming and continue to evolve. So everybody wants to get paid right now, and so our accounting folks, along with IT, make sure to get it done. So we have electronic fund transfers, we have debit cards, we have all kinds of things that you normally would think that an insurance company would simply send out a check for. And there's all kinds of things that we're doing now that are heavy technology based. And then of course management. So management would be for any of these specific branches of career path. But for management, you really have to be that go-to person. It's ever evolving and it's project heavy, but you always have to look for that development potential for anybody under you. Okay. So now we're getting into the claims adjuster skill set.
And a lot of this is what when we interview our outbound call customer care team, when we're interviewing to these positions, our questions are honed in towards the skill set. One of the biggest things is the ability for this person to build their critical thinking. By starting them in the outbound customer care team, they are starting to make phone calls and contact people and hopefully build their critical thinking. So when, like, I ask Danielle a question and she comes back with an answer, it will trigger in my mind 4 more questions that I need to answer. I need to ask to get to the depth of the claim. Customer service is huge. We drive this every day because service is in the name of our company. It is one of the foundation of of NARS. The adjusters have to be very disciplined. It's a lot of work in a short time frame. So if they're not disciplined and focused,
they're going to be all over the place, and they're not going to do the necessary steps to get to the end. They have to be self-motivated. They have to be willing to take those classes that we are, that we lay out for them. They have to be able to do it in a certain time frame.
They really need to be able to delve into an investigation. So along with the critical thinking piece and what Darlene was saying earlier about, okay, so if you have to take a statement about a particular claim, then we give you the basic outline of, okay, this is what you need to talk about. This is an outline of your question that's kind of a script. But you need to be able to go beyond that script in order to get to the meat of the matter. So it's not just, okay, was it light or dark out? We need to talk about, okay, was it light or dark out? Was it foggy? What other sorts of weather situations were there? There's so many things that go into it that we just can't put down on paper. You have to be able to carry it on from there. Reading comprehension. I can't even tell you. If you can't read a policy, that's a problem. You really need to be able to read a policy and then apply it to that particular scenario or that particular claim that's being brought in. You need to be very organized with your day. You need to be able to reprioritize as needed. If a new claim comes in and there's a fatality, I'm sorry, but that's going to absolutely go to the top of your to-do list. Additionally, communication is something that is extremely important, especially when it comes to you as a professional, the claims professional, communicating coverage and policy information to a layperson who may not necessarily know what they're talking about, what they purchased even, and you need to be able to help them move through this so that we can all have an outcome to that particular claim. So these are just some of the things that a claim adjuster needs to have in order to be successful in this industry.
And just to add a little more onto the customer service piece and communication, it is a broad statement. So one thing specifically that we look for when bringing on anybody into the outbound team would be how well they portray empathy, because you have to understand somebody who just called in reporting a claim is going through something hard. So we have to make sure we empathize, put ourselves in their shoes, and try to understand where they're coming from to let them know, we got your back. So that boils down to ownership at that. So sometimes you might get a call that you might not know the answer, or somebody else might have dropped the ball. You want to own that as best you can and have the confidence that even though you don't know the answer, you have the confidence in yourself that you're going to find the answer one way or another. So it boils down to a one-team mindset and showing empathy all around.
Absolutely. Okay. So these are the next steps. This is what everyone's been waiting for through this presentation. So what your next steps are, get your adjuster's license. If you are in a state that requires an exam, there's going to be a lot of other states that are reciprocal to that particular license, okay? Make sure you go onto your specific state's DOI, and they will take you step by step through their licensing and exam process. Once you gain about 5 years of experience, you can go ahead and pursue your insurance designation. I think that the first 5 years of any adjuster's career, you're really focusing on learning. You're learning what to do. And then once you obtain that particular comfort level, then absolutely go get that designation. The Institute is the premier place to pursue all of those designations. Step 3 is find a professional mentor. Through the organization RISE, you can easily find a mentor to ask questions, to kind of help you advance your career further. You can also join industry organizations
There's a ton of them out there. There's a lot of claims organizations that are local. They typically will have meetings on a monthly basis. They'll tend to have webinars like this one as well. And then also there are insurance schools if you're still wondering how to get any sort of licensure. Some of the study materials, if you do need to take an exam for your adjuster's license, and we will be following up with this information as well. But if you go to insurance-schools.com, they have study material for every single state, for every license that those states offer. They're absolutely fantastic. We've used them here quite a bit. They'll offer 6 months of access to online material and practice exams. I highly recommend going through them or going through adjusterpro.com. These folks are basically the premier organizations to get your study material if you need it. If you're going to be applying for multiple states, I highly recommend that you go to nipr.com. That's niper.com. They will allow you to have a single application for multiple states that you can go ahead and get licensure through. I do want to let you know, though, that a lot of the insurance companies that you're going to be applying to, they will help you either obtain or maintain your licenses. If there is a state that you have to take an exam for, I highly recommend, regardless of what you do from here on out, you continue with your continuing education credit and you get relicensed every single year. You renew that license every single year because you don't want to have to be faced with taking that exam again. So that, my friends, is our presentation. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you guys so much. I do have a couple questions. So one of the questions is, would you recommend getting an adjuster's license before getting my first job if a carrier is going to pay for my license?
That's a great question. And my personal opinion is yes, go get your license. This is going to show any potential employer that you're serious about it. Some of these places, like Adjuster Pro and whatnot, or insurance schools and whatnot, it's a couple $100 for the material. So that may be cost prohibitive to some people. However, if you can show a prospective employer that you are confident enough in your career choice that you're going out without a job and getting this license, that might be the way to go. Now, on the other hand, if you're already in a company like NARS and you're a CSR, you can go to your manager and say, hey, I'd really be interested in furthering my career as an adjuster. Will you help me pay for this? And the answer will be yes, we do help you pay for that. So it just depends on where you are in your career. If you're in college right now and you're looking for that career and you think this is it, go ahead and take the class. It's not going to hurt you. It can only help.
Okay. Another question is, what can someone expect to make as an intern or a first-year claims professional?
Our intern program concluded about 3 years ago. At that point, I don't even know what, we were doing an hourly, but I'm not sure what that was. I'm terribly sorry about that. It was 3 days a week, 8 hours those 3 days. With regards to industry standards for like the outbound call center fast track unit, it's roughly about 35. But what I also want you guys to understand is once you gain that experience and get to claim adjuster 1 level, you're talking 50 and up.
Okay.
And it does also depend on the.
Oops, sorry.
Sorry, it does also depend on the state.
Okay. A unique question is someone is saying that they went to school, graduated, or went to law school, graduated with a law degree, but decided that they did not want to become a lawyer, but wanted to go into claims.
Mhm.
What could they do? Would they have to go into an internship program, or would they be able to start as a claims adjuster since they have that law degree?
Well, they could start as an adjuster. You would still want them to go through the basics. We actually do have adjusters here that were attorneys, but you still need to get them through the basic adjusting skill set. And it depends on what they studied as well. So we have a lot of several adjusters who were previously personal injury attorneys, or they were attorneys specializing in trucking accidents or what have you. And for whatever reason, they decided that they wanted to pursue a career in claims instead of continuing along with their law practice. So they have their own struggles in going into a claims role because we're not attorneys, we're not lawyers, and the tendency is for folks to want to give that legal guidance. So that's one of the pitfalls of being an adjuster, and it's something that adjuster kind of really needs to understand as well. How the transition is something that we would work on definitely, but if you go to college and you get a law degree and you decide that you want to be an adjuster, we would work with you to get you to a position that would be a little bit more equitable with regards to money and position.
Okay. And then my last question that we have is, since a lot of carriers are not investing in internship programs and training, what is NARS doing to retain their staff so that they are not leaving after their training to go to some of these carriers without it?
That's a great question. What we're doing is we are trying to move at that person's pace and trying to move them up. We're trying to get them to not be stagnant. We don't want them to be stagnant. We want them to join the regular unit and truly gain that experience and that level of comfort with what they're doing. And we also try to make the place fun. NARS is very family oriented. We do fun things. I mean, we're not Google, don't get me wrong. We're not Facebook or Google, but we do try to do fun things. Like we have a very engaged employee committee, and then we're also working with adjusters who may need to work from home a couple of days a week. There's a lot of things that we can do just with dialogue with those particular people. And there are a lot of people who have been made offers outside of the company that we were able to successfully counter because we didn't know that there was an issue. So it's a lot of communication and a lot of the constant changing of our rules and changing the way we view the traditional workplace.
And just to add on to that, I think another thing that helps out a lot is the managers are, like Danielle was saying, very engaged in helping to understand that specific employee's goals and then building a career path or a career action plan to help them achieve those goals, whichever route that might be for them.
Well, thank you guys so much for this, Darlene, Taylor, and Danielle. We really appreciate you helping our RISE members. If we didn't get to your questions for anybody that is interested in speaking with the NARS team, you could send your questions to us by email at hello@riseprofessionals.com. Just a couple announcements before we close out. We did launch a job board on the RISE website. So RISE now offers career resources for those needing to find a new home and for companies looking to hire great talent. You would have to be a RISE member, but of course, being a RISE member is free to join. So go on our site and look at some of the job postings that we have available. We also just want to mention we have 2 upcoming conferences that we'd love for you to attend. We have the Paranational Construction Defect Conference that's on November 13th through the 15th in Fort Lauderdale, which is for in-house counsel and insurance professionals. You would receive a complimentary registration through our site. And then we also have Connected Insurance USA, which is November 20th through the 21st in Chicago. If you are a RISE member, you will get a $100 code, $100 off to get less to pay for your registration. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, NARS. This has been great, and hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.